Hello everyone, my name is Seth, and today I want to give you my review of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. I love the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They're just so fun. There's a lot of cool lore there. There's some really cool stories that have been told. And my first experience with them was the early 2000s TV show. I absolutely loved that. And I played a video game. I can't even remember the name of it right now, but I played it so much there on the GameCube. And I absolutely loved the movies from the 90s. So I'm interested in pretty much anything Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles whenever it comes out. So I was definitely interested in this. But before I go any farther, go ahead and like this video, hit subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a video. I wasn't the biggest fan of the trailers for this film. I was just kind of hoping, maybe there's some bad trailers. But unfortunately, I wasn't the biggest fan of this film. I think it's just okay. It's not really something that I can recommend to everybody. And I don't hate it by any means. I just think it's fine. It's okay. Unfortunately, I think the good and the bad in this film are pretty close to even. One big positive for me is the animation. I love the animation in this. I wasn't sure how I would like it based off of the trailers, but throughout the whole film, I really liked it. It was a really neat style of animation, and you can tell they saw Into the Spider-Verse and said, let's do our own version of that. And that's exactly what they did. This has such huge inspirations from Spider-Verse films, and that's not a bad thing. It's not a direct copy of those, but you can definitely tell it's super inspired by those. And I think the action in this film was great. It was really, really well done. It was animated extremely well. They were able to have a lot of physicality in the animation, and I thought that was really cool. Everything was animated so nice and smoothly and clearly, especially during the action scenes. You can always tell what exactly is going on. I just wish there was a couple more action sequences. Unfortunately, one thing that did not work for me is, I would say, a bulk of the comedy. It just didn't really work for me. I'm sure it'll work for some people. Who knows, it might work for most people. But for whatever reason, it just didn't really work for me. One thing that stood out to me too is that I think they relied a little bit too much on like the needle drops. There is a ton of songs in this that you would recognize just from like pop culture. And at one point, I think it became a little bit distracting for me. And also, speaking of distracting, I think there's an excess of pop culture references here. The first couple, I was like, oh, okay. But then there's more and more, and that really ended up taking me out of the film. One big positive for me, though, is how the Turtles actually feel like teenagers. There's so many different versions of the Turtles throughout many different mediums, and a lot of times they feel more like young adults, I guess I would say, instead of like a teenager. But they were able to absolutely nail the teenage dynamic here. And I think maybe part of that has to do with them actually casting younger guys to play the Turtles. And I think all of their performances were really well done. I did not have any issues whatsoever with the performances here in this film. Maybe some of the issues, I guess I could say I do have, is how some of the characters were written. Maybe I'm too influenced by the 90s movies and the early 2000s show. Maybe I'm too set in my ways of what I want from the Turtles. But this just didn't quite do it for me. I feel like they absolutely nailed Leonardo. They absolutely got him right. He feels like the leader he's supposed to be. Even if he's a little bit unsure of himself throughout the film, like he does feel like Leonardo. That's the most familiar to me. And then maybe the second most familiar to me would probably be Raphael. And I think they did a good job and they laid a solid base for his character. But the two that I honestly don't really know how to feel about was Michelangelo and Donatello. Donatello is my favorite turtle. He always has been. I don't know exactly why. I've just really gravitated towards him and his character. And I really appreciate how in this film, they didn't make him like the super duper ultra nerdy kind of character, because I don't really think that's what Donatello is. He's very intelligent. He's very smart, but he's not like the super duper ultra nerdy kind of character. But I feel like he was almost kind of a blank slate here. There's not really a ton of really strong characteristics I could say that could be attributed to Donnie here in this film. There's a couple times where he mentioned things like Attack on Titan and things like that. There's a couple times where maybe he's mentioned, like, hey, you should know how to defeat this enemy. You should kind of have an idea, right? And I like that, but it's just teeny tiny little parts. And so this doesn't really feel like Donatello to me. And I think Michelangelo was really subdued for me. Now, he's not supposed to be over the top and like annoying to the audience, but I feel like maybe he was a little bit subdued and underutilized here. Maybe he needed a little bit more time to shine. And I'm not really the biggest fan of how April's character was written here. I understand the character arc they have for her, but I don't necessarily know how I feel about her being a teenager like the other turtles. I kind of like the whole thing where she's like already an established reporter. Maybe she's like college age or something, and she can be a little bit more of a mentor for the turtles. That's what I would have done, at least. And I also think that Master Splinter was underutilized. Again, if it was me, I wish he was a little bit more of like an elegant martial arts master. But in this film, he's a little bit more of just kind of like a goofy dad type character. And that's not necessarily what I'm looking for when I'm looking for Master Splinter. He did have a really cool action sequence toward the end of the second act, but again, it's not really how I would have written his character, and it just didn't really work for me. But like I said, I had zero issues with the performances. They were all performed very well. Superfly, I would say for the bulk of this story, was an intimidating villain, and it was a good change of pace from Shredder and the Foot Clan. Of course, if they continue this story, I would love to see Shredder. I would love to see their version of Shredder and see how that story can develop. But Superfly and his group of other mutants was a really good choice for this kind of origin story. His plan wasn't necessarily unique. We've seen it before, especially in like some other kind of comic book style films, but it does make sense for his character. But one thing I didn't necessarily care for, no spoilers here, but it was kind of at the beginning of the third act, there were some choices made by some characters that I didn't really buy. I just don't know if those characters in that situation would make that decision. It just didn't really click with me. And I think maybe the third act went a little bit over the top. I think it maybe went a little bit too far. It got a little bit more out of hand than what I would have wanted to see, especially from a Turtles kind of origin film. However, I did absolutely love seeing the Turtles work together, really throughout the whole movie, but specifically here in the third act. There was this moment where the four of them came together, and it was just awesome. That was a really, really good moment there. But overall, I think I just have to say that this film is okay. It's not really as good as I was hoping it would be. And I don't think I can really go out and put my stamp of approval on it and say like, hey, everybody who's watching this, go see this film. I can't do that. You might like it more than me, so that's why I'll say use your own judgment, because you might like it more than me. I don't hate this film. It's just kind of whatever. But again, you might actually love it. I think I'm probably in the minority here with my opinions, but I think the good and the bad is just about even, unfortunately. But I wouldn't mind seeing what they could do with a sequel. I think this is a very interesting art style, and it's an interesting world that they have set up. I think I can only give it a 2.5 out of 5 stars. But that's it. That's my review of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem. Have you seen this film? Let me know what you thought about it in the comment section down below. I would love to have a discussion with you about it. Did you like it more than I did? I'd love to hear your thoughts. We are getting closer and closer to 100 subscribers. That's so exciting. So if you haven't yet, please consider subscribing. It would absolutely make my day. Don't forget to like this video, hit subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a video. Follow me on social media pretty much anywhere at CinemaSeth, and I'll see you next time.